Hello, a very good evening and welcome to the locker room. This is the number one sports show on Indie Live Radio. We're here every Friday night speaking about funny enough sport. And believe it or not, I'm quite upset, Matthew, because this is the last show of the year. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. What a year it's been.
Yeah.
I can't say I'm sorry to see the back of it.
I think the best part of the year was working with you. No.
I got interested from about June onwards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My memory bank's deleted from January to June.
How we managed to fill short airtime with sport that wasn't happening.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what we spoke about. We must have spoke about the pheasant championships or something. I'm not sure. But yeah, so good evening. Welcome to the show. Coming up tonight, we've got a busy show as always. So let's just dive right in there and speak about it's funny speaking about the Scottish Cup final, Matthew, from last season, but the final's on Sunday.
Well, would you believe, if you take a look back on this, the preliminary round of this Scottish Cup that's going to be played on Sunday started on the 10th of August 2019 when was it Jeanfield Swifts hammered Easter Scotland, league rivals Coldstream 9-1. So that was the start of the Scottish Cup season all that time ago. And if you think about even what's happened in the meantime, because you forget all these things, it was only, the fifth round replay between Motherwell and St Mirren was probably one of the highlights of this Scottish Cup run.
Yeah.
When I think the latter let a 4-1 lead at half-time slip, only then to win on the penalty shootout, and things like that happened. So it's actually been a pretty good Scottish Cup run. It was, or a good Scottish Cup competition. I had a few giant killings. I had lots of goals, would you believe? I had teams from East of Scotland playing quite well and defeating League Two sides. Was it Pennycook Athletic, I think it was?
You know what we should have done, Matthew, right? You know who on the TV they go, they show you the highlight from the first round to the final. Well, to the final. You should have done that for us.
Well, definitely, because do you not remember some of the stuff? I mean, Bonnie Rigrose beat Montrose 2-1, right?
And that's the end of the show this week.
Well, there was other ones. There was BSC Glasgow beat East Fife. I can't remember what the score was there, but BSC Glasgow beat East Fife and knocked them out. I think was it as well. No, there was a few. I think BSC even beat East Kilbride as well. All these things happened in the Scottish Cup this year that will be unfortunately forgotten about because of COVID. But yeah, I think Kelty Hearts also had a good run in this competition as well. So there was lots and lots of giant killings in this competition, even without the Motherwell St Mirren game or Aberdeen beating Kilmarnock and the usual sorts of things. Auchinleck Talbot beat. I think it was Auchinleck Talbot actually. They beat Hearts.
Yeah, that's Hearts. Right. Yeah, it was at Auchinleck as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, because that's what it was. They beat Kelty, and that was a big shock.
That's right. Yeah.
So you're trying to remember all these things that happened, and it's a shame because they were big at the time, and it's only now when you look back you can remember them a little bit. But all of that will be forgotten about, unfortunately, because of COVID, and it all comes down to obviously Sunday's game between Celtic and Hearts, and that will be the game that will obviously be remembered. But there was loads of things in this Scottish Cup run that teams under the league's the structure should be proud of.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to rack my brains now, Matthew, about how Celtic and Hearts got to the final. But they're there in the final. And
do you not remember Hearts beating Rangers? That was at Tynecastle. That Hearts.
Yeah. And believe it or not, was that a year ago? Because was that December?
Oh, yeah. That was. Well, that would have been January, February. It was the time also that Hearts beat Hibs. They went on a wee run near the end of the season. And they beat Rangers. Did they not beat Rangers at Tynecastle twice? They beat once in the league as well.
Yeah.
They also beat Hibs at Easter Road. So that was actually a little bit of a good run for Hearts that they had. So they were on a decent run in the cup competitions. Unfortunately, in the league, it wasn't great for them. But the cup was really their get out that last season.
And it's about weird as well, right? Because Hearts started in the Scottish Cup in the in the big league, and now they're in the final, and now they're in the first division.
And they also had a different manager. I think when they started their run, they had Stendhal was in charge.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and like that's he beat Rangers, as you were saying, at Tynecastle.
Well, they were so poor in the league, but the cup was a get out for them. I think they beat. Thinking of Hearts, I actually remember Hearts run a bit better than Celtic's run, strangely enough, because they beat Airdrie. That was their first time. Then they beat Falkirk, and then they beat Rangers. So obviously that was the games that when Stendhal was there, and they obviously went on a little run in the cup, and it was the only thing that went right for Hearts last year. And then obviously, add on so many months, they then obviously beat Hibs in the semi-final last month. So, Hearts' run to the final has been quite good, but obviously it's had its ups and downs in the sense that, different league, different players, different manager. What's going to happen with Craig Gordon? Is he going to get a winners and runners-up medal? Because he played in the competition for Celtic too. Yeah, so all these questions will be answered on Sunday. I'm trying to think back of Celtic's run. Celtic, I think they beat Partick Thistle. They beat Clyde.
They beat from home.
Yeah, they beat St Johnstone as well, and then obviously last month, when they were struggling, they managed to beat Aberdeen. So their run to the final has been equally dramatic.
In fact, I remember that St Johnstone game because was that not the second last game before the shutdown?
I was wondering where you were going with that long S there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the thing. But the Scottish Cup, this Scottish Cup final is quite interesting as well, because I know Celtic have since lost to Ross County and obviously lost the League Cup. But if you think May 2016 was the last time a side, and I moved to Ireland actually full time this month. May 2000, or this month and year, May 2016 was the last time a club other than Celtic won a domestic trophy in Scotland. Can you remember who that was? I'll remind you. Well, close. I'll remind you. Hibs beating Rangers 3-2 in the Scottish Cup, which ended a run of 114 years that Hibs won in the Cup. But since that moment, Celtic have won every single domestic trophy.
Do you
want to hear what else happened that year? Because I've done a bit of research on this because it was interesting to see. Like the last time Celtic didn't win a major trophy, David Cameron was the Prime Minister. The Angry Birds movie was #1 at the box office. Barack Obama was the President of the USA.
You have been busy, a busy boy.
Would you believe the next month Brexit happened? The vote for Brexit happened. And the big one was Leicester City won the Premiership.
What I told you about swearing about saying Brexit?
But it's quite crazy when you think of all those things. That seems like years ago, and it was years ago. But that was the last time Celtic never won a domestic trophy, and that obviously could continue into next year, depending on what happens on Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, so looking at the game on Sunday, Matthew, right? Speaking about Hearts first, because obviously we like to build their games up. Hearts, Hearts have started well off in the Championship. They've got a good record in the Championship, and they've only got 25 games this season as well.
I mean, I always name drop on this show, and I only know one Hearts fan. Personally, and and obviously his name's Graham Duthie, and he won't mind me mentioning. But if you go on what Graham says about Hearts are in the probably one of the worst teams he's ever seen, and the manager's absolutely pathetic, and they're not doing very much. And he'll laugh when he hears this because this is all you get from some Hearts fans, or the one that I know. But like you say, the one thing about the Hearts do have is they're actually on quite a good run. Obviously, they'll start this game as underdogs. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they will start as underdogs, but what happened in Paisley on Wednesday night when St Mirren knocked out Rangers shows what the underdog can do on a one-off basis. Hearts are on a good run of form, and even though it's a championship, and Celtic therefore should be favourites, obviously, and even if Hearts won the Premiership, Celtic would be favourites. That's just the way it goes. But because they're on such a good run of form in the Championship, whatever league it is, it will mean that the players for Hearts will go into this game with great confidence. And that's the one thing, Celtic obviously have won the last 2 games, but the confidence for Celtic could easily dip if a goal goes in against them. Whereas Hearts, because they are so confident, they are going into this happy. They're going into this knowing the system that they're playing. They know what to do. They've obviously knocked out Hibs only last month, so they know how to beat a team arguably that's on just as good a run as Celtic in the league and Hibs. So they know how to beat top flight opposition. So therefore, and they've won Scottish Cups. Hearts know how to win Scottish Cups. They know how to win big games. So I think going into this game, Robbie Neilson, Craig Gordon and goal, they'll be confident, and they don't really have anything to fear. It's almost like a no-lose situation for them. And this game could be one of those ones where, okay, they might lose and they're expected to lose, but in theory it could be an unforgettable occasion for Hearts. And it'll be interesting to see how they perform and how Celtic perform, because if Celtic perform the way they've been doing over recent weeks in games and they do concede early, Hearts could technically cause a big upset here. It's not out the realms of possibility that Hearts could win this.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, looking back to last season, maybe about 2 seasons ago now, because every player Smith's Cup because of coronavirus, but Hearts took the league in that game, and I think Celtic not won 2-1.
Well, yeah, I mean, this game is just one of those ones where, I think in the dressing room for Hearts, they'll be playing it down a little bit. They'll be coming into this just quietly, but they'll be confident. The Championship, when you think about this, the Championship as a competition isn't weak. Mm-hmm. Hearts are winning games this year against really strong opposition, and there's a lot of pressure on them. I mean, I think you mentioned that there's less games this year, and I think because of that, there's even more of a heightened pressure in that league. But Hearts are still winning. I mean, I think they've won 4 of the last 5, some form like that. You've got a sense in Hearts that everybody there knows that they've got something to prove, but without the pressure on this game anyway, because it's a Scottish Cup, they know they've got something to prove, but the pressure isn't on them in this game only. So Hearts can go out really and express themselves.
Yeah. I did see Hearts, maybe you're the same. I saw Hearts at the beginning of the season when I think we called it the email derby between Hearts and Dundee. And Hearts played well that night, but also saw them against, was it Arroa? I can't remember. The second game where they just won 1-0.
Yeah, they've won. It is pressure. Hearts are obviously the big team in the Championship, and there is a lot of pressure on them not only to perform but to win. But they have been doing that. Don't get me wrong. They've been showing that they can win games on a consistent basis. It's almost like Celtic in the Premiership. The expectation on Hearts is huge in the Championship, but in this competition, I think they can obviously take the foot off the gas a little bit, and they can perform without knowing there's a pressure there to win, because most people will expect Hearts to lose. But like I said, they've got experience of winning this competition. I think Neilson, he's won the competition for Hearts. Craig Gordon. Yeah, well, he was in that same cup final. I think Neilson and Gordon played in the same side in 2006 when they played Gretna. Yeah, and there's obviously other players in the Hearts side, the ex-Rangers contingent who have won competitions as well, or played at a high standard as well in high-pressured games. So, Hearts aren't going into this as a complete and utter underdog. There's a chance there that, even though Celtic are expected to win, Hearts are on a good run of form. Like I said, the pressure will be off in this game. they can go out and just perform to their best. They are a Premiership team. I mean, when you look at their side, they are a Premiership team on paper, and Celtic, will have to perform at their best to really go on and create history. I mean, the pressure's all on Celtic, because if you think about this, and given all the mess that's gone on in the recent months, Celtic are on the brink of history on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Let's speak about Celtic now, Matthew, because it's been a funny beginning to the season. What was it? 9 games without a win, and then the last 2 games they've actually put in some decent performances and decent results as well. Okay, you might argue about the European game because they were out anyway, but they still have to prove to the fans and all that they could put on a performance and win. And I've been impressed with them the last 2 games, but they need to be they need to be up for this game again, because as you say, they could make history, but also this is a one-off game, Matthew. So if they get beaten this one, they lose the cup, but they also lose out in the treble. So yeah, maybe you're right in saying that all the press is on Celtic a bit more than Hearts.
I mean, history. I mean, if to put Celtic's one in context, I mean, the quadruple treble, a 12th consecutive trophy, and like I said, when you run back through all the things that happened the last time some other team than Celtic won the cup, it was years ago. Celtic are on the brink of a 12th consecutive trophy. I mean, the whole thing's unprecedented for Celtic. And even though the club's been, like you mentioned that, the club's been absolutely beset by problems this season. And it's obviously surrounded the complete and utter fall off of the 10th league and title in a row sort of collapse that's happened. And obviously, the question is, does the quadruple treble still matter? And the answer is yes, because no one's ever done it before. And it is a huge thing, although obviously, like I said, 10 titles in a row will sort of consume everybody this year. But a quadruple treble is still massive. But I mean, the scary thing is Celtic's collapse, has been pretty fast and staggering. I mean, 1 minute you're starting the season and you think Celtic and Rangers are going to be running neck and neck, and all of a sudden Celtic take almost a nosedive. This season. And, when you look back on last season, Celtic won 12 out of the last 14 games. So they were coming into this quite confidently. And then obviously the summer happened, and then all of these unconvincing performances started. Celtic lost to Ferencváros in the Champions League qualifier. Celtic were unconvincing in the league. They were unconvincing in the Europa League. The wheels absolutely came off the bus when they played Rangers at Celtic Park in October. And Neil Lennon looked doomed, but like you said, the last 2 games they've shown light at the end of the tunnel. They've started to shore up at the back. They look a lot more solid. They've got rid of players that either don't want to be there or haven't been performing for Neil Lennon. And the last 2 games, they've not obviously taken away from the fact it's been a disaster this year for Celtic, but they've started to show a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Or on the other hand, they're papering over the cracks. It depends which way you want to look at it. But there is light at the end of the tunnel for Celtic this year and for Neil Lennon. And it's clear, if Lennon keeps winning, he will keep his job probably at least till the summer if he does keep winning. And this is really the first of those games where he does have to win. And I'd say for December, not only does he have to win this game, really he has to win every single game in December to keep his job, running up to the Old Firm game in January.
So basically you're saying every game's a cup final?
Every game's definitely a cup final. I mean, this year it is all about the 10, don't get me wrong. I think for Celtic it is all about the 10. But this game has the potential to make Celtic, history makers for probably all time in this regard. It's a massive game. Every game is massive for Celtic from now until the end of the season.
Am I right in saying as well, Matthew, that I know that you come up with different stats and all that. What I'm in the same year as whatever when Celtic never won the cup. But am I right in saying that the last game Celtic played Hearts was Neil Lennon's first league game in charge of Celtic against Hearts at Tynecastle?
And that seems like ages ago as well. I mean that game. I mean, when he sort of took charge again, he was under pressure because even though the league in theory was won, it wasn't one. He still had to go and he still had to win these games. I think there was a trip to Easter Road tied into that as well.
That was the second game, Matthew, and I think that was that not the quarterfinals as well.
Yeah, that's right. So, he has got a good record against Edinburgh sides. I mean, he does do not too badly under pressure. I mean, this year's just been a disaster for him in all honesty. And it is all about the 10 for him. But I think, he's found a winning formula. They like I said, they changed the team against Leon Kilmarnock. They found a keeper that can actually command his penalty box. They found a defence that can actually defend as their main task.
Mm-hmm.
Their midfield, with Sorrow and McGregor, they can win the midfield battle. With people like Ellen Yusey out wide, they can create chances for Edward or Klimala or Griffiths or whoever's going to play up front. And with Turnbull, you've got a guy who's just got a real drive in midfield. I mean, he reminds me of the Scott Brown at Hibs type player.
Mm-hmm.
He's got drive. He can get the ball anywhere on the pitch. He can get forward. He can create chances. He can do all that. He can score goals. He can do everything that Scott Brown used to be able to do at Hibs in his early time at Celtic. So I think they've found a formula now, and I think Lennon has to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I would guard against this weekend is, I think Lennon might go back to the old guard, just because they've obviously won the trophies up to now. They might deserve that chance, and Lennon does tend to, have a loyal aspect to his career. But I hope for his sake, if he does do that, Celtic don't lose, because if he does do it and Celtic lose, then we're back at crisis point for him.
Okay, so that's the game on Sunday. By the way, it's a funny kickoff time for that game, 2:30 on Sunday. It's usually a 3 o'clock, but I suppose it's just the TV and all that, so it's 2:30 on Sunday. Celtic against Hearts at Camden Park on last season's Scottish Cup final. That seems a bit weird for us to say, but it's weird times that we're living in at the moment. So,
definitely.
Just looking ahead to the league games at the weekend, Matthew, I was going to say that there was one outstanding game of the weekend, but I'm looking at that St Mirren St Johnstone game. That looks a tasty game as well. But I'll read all the games at the weekend. So we've got Hibs against Dundee United. Rangers is at home to Motherwell. Ross County is playing Hamilton Accies. St Mirren is playing St Johnstone. So the championship, we will have Alloa against Inverness, Arbroath against Ayr United, Dundee against Dunfermline. Oh, that's a tasty game as well, I would say. Morton against Queen of the South. But Matthew, I was going to say Hibs against Dundee United. We'll speak about that one first. I mean, I saw Dundee United last week against Rangers, and they played well. The first half, Dundee United, I think they had the better chances of the game, but the second half, they just couldn't get out. It was all Rangers for the whole all the 45 minutes. But you must say, even though they get beat Dundee United 2-1, I thought Dundee United kind of battled away well.
I mean, if you think about Dundee United as well, they've had all the crisis with COVID over the last few weeks. So, they're obviously they're a new club in this league, which is difficult enough. They lost their manager in the pre-season to Hearts, which added pressure as well. And then obviously they started the season quite good, but they obviously had lost they'd lost the main striker, Shankland, so they'd lost him, and they still started the season okay. But obviously, when any team's promoted, you can have your up and downs. But they've obviously been affected by COVID, over the last few weeks, players and staff. So they've had a very turbulent time. So their performance against Rangers was actually quite good, considering all of the COVID situation that was going on at Tannadice. So they played all right. They've played all right against Celtic and Rangers this year, and they're quite an impressive team. considering them just came out. They're bang in the middle of the league, so it kind of suggests where they're at. And they travel to Easter Road, which I think for any team at the moment is a very difficult game.
Mm-hmm.
Because, while Hibs' form has been up and down over the last few weeks, they are obviously right now, they're the third best team in the country. And obviously if they win this weekend, they go above Celtic into second.
Yeah.
And I think, Hibs, if they've got any ambitions to finish in the top three, then this is the sort of game that Hibs have to win. And to be honest, I can't see anything but a Hibs victory this weekend. But I mean, as you know, with COVID, it's very difficult to predict, and it's been all over the place this year. But I think Hibs have got.
Looking back to last week's game, I can't remember what said in the show, but Hamilton and Hibs was looking at an interesting game, and Hamilton makes life difficult for teams no matter if they go away from home or at home for years now, Matthew. But I was surprised to see that Hibs winning, 4-0 away from home? And that was a good win for Hibs last week.
I think Hibs have their squad might not be big enough. That's the only worry for Hibs. But when they have their best sort of 15, 16 players available, Hibs probably are the third best team in the country. And I think when we predicted this at the start, some people laughed at us when we were saying, Hibs are going to have a good season this year. And some people were like, don't be stupid. Don't be so stupid. But they're proving that I think they've got a solid defence finally. They've got, like I said, Gogic has been a big thing for them because Hibs always struggle to have a midfield battler. They always have nice players. They've got quality players, that can create chances. But very often they lose midfield battles. And having someone like Gogic in there, I think it's just solidified their defence. He does nothing really but break up the play, but that's what Hibs need, and that's what they've needed for a while. So they look a lot more solid. They've obviously got Nisbet up front, who's been scoring goals for fun. And even though with the sad passing of his father, he's still continued to have really good form. So I think Hibs this year have looked a different prospect. They've only lost 3 games. They've won 9 out of 17. They're in great form. Easter Road is a difficult place to go. And I feel for Dundee United because they're just starting to come out of this COVID situation. And then your first trip after that's Easter Road, which is obviously a really hard place to go. So, I mean, like I said, it's nothing against Dundee United, but I think Hibs are just too hard to beat and they've got too much quality up front. And I think Dundee United will struggle to live with that.
The other interesting game this weekend is that Mirren's been on a good run of form, even though, they beat Rangers during the week, and I think everybody was surprised about that, Matthew. And I think that's 10 games unbeaten now. But, when you look at the opponents at Johnson there, they've actually started to pick up as well, and they're also in the semi-finals of the League Cup as well. So that looks like a very entertaining game, that one.
Yeah, St Mirren are on a good run of form, and obviously that includes the cup runs, because when you look at their league form as such, it's not as impressive. They're only 2 points off bottom in the league. They're 1 point obviously off Hamilton in 11th. So the league's quite congested. If you think about Ross County is 12th on 13 points. And then obviously on sort of 17 points, you've got Kilmarnock and St Johnstone, who are 8th and 9th. So it's quite congested down at the bottom. But St Mirren really need to start picking up points in the league. And they have a chance to do that against St Johnstone, especially at home. They've obviously just beaten Rangers, so confidence will be high. And, again, if they've got designs to stay in this league and be quite comfortable, then I think you'd be looking to beat St Johnstone at home. But St Johnstone are obviously one of these sides as well that are quite difficult to beat as well, and can be quite solid as well. So it's a difficult game to call. I wouldn't be surprised if this ended in a draw. But like St Mirren really should be looking to try and pick up points, especially at home, to try and clear themselves from those bottom 2 positions.
Just quickly mention the game at Ibrox as well, Rangers against Motherwell. All I could say is a Rangers win, but I think that on Wednesday night and they get beat against St Mirren. Rangers would have to get back to winning ways this weekend, but Motherwell's been a bit disappointing so far, especially when it comes to Rangers and Celtic, because they're all from Wembley and they beat Motherwell convincingly. I think it was 4-0 or 5-0 in kind of like both games.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say about Rangers is this is the first time this year that Rangers have obviously lost a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time this week that they'll be cut.
Yeah.
They've been tested. I mean, sadly, it's the first time they've been tested in domestic football.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they'll come into this game, for the first time having lost the game, the pressure will be, it'll be huge pressure, because when you bear in mind, Steven Gerrard hasn't won a trophy with the Rangers as yet. And if you think about the fact that the League Cup was seen as, since Celtic got knocked out, the League Cup was seen as a trophy that Rangers might win, and that'll be the first one and get over that hurdle. To then lose it against St Mirren has put huge pressure on Rangers. And that could be the thing that causes them problems, because as we saw last year, when they started to lose games, the pressure mounted and they just couldn't get out of that rut. So this is a big game just to see where they're at. Like you said, they played Motherwell earlier this season and they won 5-1. But if Robinson manages to get his defence to play sturdily, solidly, and manages to keep Rangers maybe peg level, the longer the game goes on, the more stress Rangers will have. And I think, if Rangers don't get an early goal, this game could be very interesting at Ibrox on Saturday.
And by the way, if I can remember back to that game at Fir Park, Motherwell never scored a goal, because Dig Rangers not scoring on goal in that game.
Good memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that game was disappointing, because I think everybody thought Rangers would get tested at Fir Park. And when the score came in 5-1, everybody was like, well, that's a massive result for Rangers, but also it shows where Motherwell are in the realm of things. But, I could see that if Motherwell parked the bus almost this weekend, and you're looking at 20, 30 minutes on the clock, even half time, and you're looking at 0-0, imagine the dressing room at Ibrox. The pressure will be on. That's when Motherwell could get a result out of this. And this is where Rangers could struggle. But on the other hand, if Rangers come out the blocks and score early, it could be another 5-1 on your hands. It just depends, really, I think, how this game progresses, and as the clock ticks down, as to what kind of game we get at Ibrox on Saturday.
The other game at the weekend would be Ross County against Hamilton, and right away you can say that that's a bottom six game as well. That's bottom six, and that's a kind of like 6 pointer in that game.
Yeah, they're neck and neck at the bottom. Obviously it's at Ross County, so it might give Ross County a slight advantage. We suggested Hamilton would be around there or thereabouts at the bottom come the end of the season, and nothing's really made me change my mind as such. I think we'll see where Ross County are at this weekend, and you would hope for the Staggies' sake that they could beat Hamilton at home. But if Hamilton go there and pick up something, even a win, then it'll be a great boost to Hamilton this season. So it's a big game, even this early on. It could make or break this year for either of those sides. But it's difficult as well, because obviously we are not going to be here for the next 2 weeks, and there's some interesting games going on over the little break. So I think on the 23rd, St Johnstone are playing Rangers at Perth, and that's another game that Rangers will have a lot of. Yeah, and on the same day, Celtic play Ross County at home.
Yeah.
So yeah, that means nothing, obviously, result-wise. But, if Rangers again go to St Johnstone and struggle in Perth, and Celtic are beating Ross County at home, it's another thing that will stand Rangers in good stead if they win. But if they're not winning, then the pressure will start mounting again. And then Rangers are at home on Boxing Day against Hibs at Ibrox. So
that's another interesting game as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so Rangers, having lost it against St Mirren, the pressure mountain, they've got a home game against Motherwell, and then obviously you've got games coming up against St Johnstone and Perth, but also Hibs at Ibrox is humongous. And Celtic on the same day travel to Hamilton, so you would expect Celtic to win. So leading up to that Old Firm game on the 2nd of January, Celtic in theory have a chance of closing that gap, or on the other hand, Rangers have a chance to prove that they're finally championship material.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Old Firm game in the new year, something could look forward to. A bit of news, Matthew, about the bit of news coming out today, actually, about the old I don't know if you've heard of this before. It's something called Brexit. don't know if you've heard of
Oh, I've not heard about that for a while.
it. Yeah, I've never heard of it. Maybe it's a big word, I'm not sure. It's about Scottish football clubs facing major kind of deals because if they sign players outside of kind of like
Right now.
yeah, Britain. Yeah, yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, that this story has been about for ages, and I think most people, most football fans, journalists like me and you and all that, will get, yeah, I classify you as a journalist now, Matthew. Well, welcome to the club. There's no going back now. We were talking about Matthew's all happy now.
I'm chuffed.
I've made his Christmas. Angus New Year, Angus birthday, and about players not coming in because of this kind of carry on with the Brexit.
I mean, obviously at present, EU players can freely sign for Scottish clubs. It's not a problem at the moment, and obviously Scottish clubs have been using that to their advantage because while the English market, obviously internal English market, might be a bit off for Scottish clubs at the moment because the costs are so high about recruiting English players. They've been using, talking about St Mirren. St Mirren have been using the Irish market. Celtic and Rangers have been using the EU market for a while to bring in not only players who are established, but also young players who are coming through the system who might go on to be top class players. So, every club in Scotland has been using the EU market to its advantage. But obviously, depending on what happens deal-wise in the next few weeks, we could end up with radical changes in club structures because of Brexit, because Scottish clubs can't bring in the EU players as easy as before. And it may mean a completely strange in their focus and structure. But, that's the negative side of things. We might not be able to see as quality of EU players coming in as we've seen in the past. The bonus of that is something that we mentioned previously. It may, though, result in homegrown players coming to the fore again.
Yeah, it might be a good thing as well, Matthew,
Yeah, I think what you might find is that, from the EU player side of things, if there's work permits, it depends on what the Home Office frame this like. But in theory, you could have a situation where, right now, obviously, we can sign anybody in the EU. It doesn't matter if they're seen as good, bad, or indifferent. But what this might result in, and I fall in the middle, it could be a good thing or a bad thing, but what it could mean is that only European players of a certain standard will be able to come into the country. They'll be able to play all the time because of the point system that might be introduced. But on the other hand, it means that Scottish teams will have to focus more on their youth players to fill their ranks. And as you've seen, Scotland are getting slightly better at that over the last few years. But it may well be that Brexit forces them to become even more centred on their own homegrown players, and that Scotland may well produce better players because of that. So it'll be interesting to how it changes club structures and league structures as a whole. But one thing I can say is it will definitely change them one way or the other.
Yeah, it's one of these stories where we just have to keep on top of it. And to be honest, Matthew, it's not going to go away anytime soon.
And it may change. We could have it. We could think we've got this sorted, and then in a few weeks' time it changes again. So it's difficult to know how this will play out. But it's going to be difficult because it will limit what players Scottish teams can bring in. So that's the downside to it. It may well mean that we as Scotland have to then look to the English market, which will cost more money, which is a negative. But like I said, it may well result in youth players being given more of a chance, and that can only be a good thing. So it will have its negatives, but it will definitely have its positives as well.
Okay, so a bit of rugby news now. News on Glasgow Warriors coming up soon, but also this week, Matthew, was a big week for the Rugby World Cup. I think it's 2023, is that right?
Yeah. The draw for the 2023 World Cup pools, pool stages have been made, and in true Scottish fashion, Scotland are in probably the toughest pool that they could have been given. After being drawn against South Africa, who are the number one team in the world at the moment and current world champions. and Ireland, who are currently, fifth in the world and are doing not too bad, and obviously hammered us a few weeks ago at the Aviva Stadium. So, it's a very tough group to be in. Like I said, Springboks are the champions. Ireland are obviously one of the best teams in the country at the moment as well. So, but on the plus side, if you're a general World Cup fan, for Scottish fans, it's a disaster because it means we probably will be in a fight to get out of the pool.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at it generally, all three teams that we mentioned are currently in the top 8 of the world. So it's going to be a very competitive group. It could be close, and Scotland are obviously moving up the rankings as well. So Scotland are 7th, Ireland are 5th, South Africa are 1st. It's a very good World Cup group. It's just a shame because while Scotland are getting better, it's sod's law really that Scotland would then draw a group where two of the sides are probably better than us and really world class opposition.
And just in case anybody's picky about the letters of the groups or whatever, it's Pool B for that one. But you were saying to me, Matthew, that this one more team could come out this weekend or in a few weeks' time?
Yeah, the qualifiers coming up. There'll be qualifiers from the Asia Pacific region, and there'll be qualifiers in Europe, and the outcome of that will complete Pool B. And the games are obviously in France, so it's not too far to travel. If we could get a maybe little trip over, Michael, to France, we could go and watch a couple of games.
Yeah, bonjour.
Yeah, that's all I know. Bonjour, au revoir. Yeah, that'll be us, au revoir, the group.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll know in the coming months really what teams we get from Pool B. But like I said, it'll be a tough ask to do anything in that group because of Ireland, and definitely because of South Africa.
Big news coming out of Glasgow Warriors yesterday, Matthew, and I don't know how you feel about this one, but the Champions Cup match with Lyon has been Lyon. I'll say that again. Glasgow Warriors game, Champions Cup match with Lyon has been postponed because, believe it or not, 20 of the Glasgow players have been isolated because of the coronavirus outbreak. And when they play a game, Exeter last weekend, I think they were talking about that, Matthew, on the show last week, when they were playing Exeter, who beat the Warriors 42-0 in that game last weekend. So most of the players, in fact, all the players, pick up the coronavirus. But I thought this was a bit hard to believe that that they have made a decision to hand over a 20-0 defeat. And now, I don't know about you, but
that was better than last week.
Yeah. but I mean that's a bit harsh, that.
They're getting better. I mean, last week was a disaster because we've spoke about how COVID and international rugby has affected the Scottish sides in the Pro 14 and in the Champions Cup. It's obviously continued in that. I mean, last week was a disaster for Glasgow, losing 42-0 to Exeter. And then, like you're saying, it just went from bad to worse. Players picked up COVID, and now it looks like it could be that the Warriors will be given a 28-0 defeat this weekend, which would mean that their hopes of progression are very slim to none in this pool. It's a shame, I think COVID's obviously affecting sport, and I do think if it could be rearranged to be played, then I think it should be. But unfortunately, if these are the rules that have been set to, I think in the International Cup, Scotland benefited from a 28-0 win as well, didn't they? So was it Fiji? They lost 20-0 because of COVID. So I think it set a bit of a precedent here that that if you do have to pull out because of COVID, you will be awarded a 28-0 defeat. And Glasgow Warriors really are on the brink of that. But what's sad in this moment is obviously it didn't really affect Fiji one way or the other when obviously the games were cancelled because they were struggling regardless. But obviously this game, this 28-0 defeat would obviously signal really the end for Glasgow Warriors' chances in the Champions Cup, and I think that's what's sickening. While I can see that that's what they're doing, and obviously that's the rules, it's sad because it will end Glasgow Warriors' progression in this tournament, and that's quite sad to see, really.
And I mean, it's not just happening in rugby, Matthew. We've spoken about for weeks and weeks and weeks about the football. Kilmarnock, St Mirren, even Motherwell that get found in Kilmarnock were they not playing Falkirk in the League Cup, and Falkirk without kicking a ball they won that game 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's almost like because they're trying to fit in everything that they used to fit in, even though the league's started a lot later because obviously the COVID gap, and then there was a bit of a pre-season, and then everybody started a lot later than they normally would, but they're still trying to fit in all these fixtures that they would normally play, and because of that there's not a lot of room for manoeuvre. And yeah, it's disappointing for clubs and players when they're not playing and they're being affected by COVID, to be given a defeat, whether it's a 3-0 defeat or whether it's a 28-0 defeat in rugby. But I can see what's happening here because they're probably thinking, well, there's no real room for manoeuvre here fixture-wise. We need to get these fixtures down on paper one way or the other is finished. And this is the only way they can do it and finish the season.
I feel it's a harsh way to award teams points instead of, giving 3-0 or 4-0 or 5-0. They should just give people the points instead of saying, you won that game 5-0.
Yeah, I mean, the score lines are a bit much. I mean, even if they were to be awarded, say, 1-0 defeat, especially in the league, because a lot of things in the leagues could come down to goal difference or points difference in rugby. Yeah, and if you're handing out, if you're handing out 3-0 defeats or 28-0 defeats, then it does affect your goal or point difference. Yeah. So I see that line of argument is definitely something that is a bit unfair.
I mean, look at Motherwell, right? I'm not saying they've all been the bottom six or the relegation battle, or maybe St Mirren as well. But that could be, a case of, surviving in the league or getting relegated because of the points that they've lost.
Yeah, or Motherwell. I mean, Motherwell. Yeah. If you think about Motherwell, they'll probably be fighting for top six.
Yeah, and I mean that's the same in rugby as well. And you could say that's maybe if you think about other sports as well. I know we're talking about football and rugby, but if you think about other team sports, I don't know any offhand at the moment, but that could affect a lot of teams, and a lot of teams maybe going out of business as well, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean rugby's even more complicated because if you think about rugby, not only can you lose, I mean, you can lose 20-0, obviously, but in rugby you can lose but also pick up a bonus point. So how does that come into it?
Yeah, I know, exactly.
It's very difficult to come up with a standard solution that works because, well, the reason I mentioned the bonus point is obviously Edinburgh, they played last week in the European Champions Cup, and again, Edinburgh lost. But Edinburgh only lost by, 8-13. So if you think about that, because they lost, but they picked up a bonus point that may be make or break in their challenge for the European Champions Cup. So yeah, I thought Glasgow obviously probably would have had a decent result actually at the weekend, but bonus points are coming into it. So not only have they been beaten off the park because of this COVID and 28 now, but they obviously don't have any opportunity to pick up any bonus points. So it sort of doubly affects rugby more than even football.
And now here's a kind of like shameful. I think that's the word that I'm looking for here. Plug for the next thing we're going to speak about. And so, I mean, you would take off points in boxing, would you? Boom, boom. See that I dig.
Does that mean does that mean like if you have COVID in boxing, someone's just got to come along and punch you in the face?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I don't know if you saw what I did with that link. No, maybe not.
It was clever.
Yeah, brilliant, good stuff. Thanks, Matthew.
Maybe in boxing you should have like you could dress up a punching bag. If someone has COVID, you could just dress up a mummy or something.
Or maybe take off a round round at a
Yeah.
time. Yeah. Round 2.
You know, getting one of those blow up dolls we were talking about back in July. Just have a blow up doll in the ring and see how you get on.
I've got to remind Matthew that this is a sports show.
I've lost my fist. I've lost my fist in its mouth.
Well, seeing it's coming to the end of the show, and the end of the year, and so yeah, let's move on swiftly now. I was doing quite well up to that point as well, Mark. About Josh Taylor, the boxing big Hibs fan. He's thinking about his future this week, calling it a day. The world champion is calling it a day of boxing, and he's only 36. So what I wanted to say, Matthew, was do you think that a lot of people will be retiring early through the sport because of the coronavirus, or whatever, because they're not competing enough?
Yeah, I mean, I think what the coronavirus definitely has done is it's given people, number one, time to think. So when events were taking place, and Josh Taylor, obviously, his career was rich in possibilities, so he could have been fighting quite a lot or training all the time. So he wouldn't have had a lot of time to sit back and consider his future. But the COVID thing has given people time to think. And it's also given people a look as to what life is like when you spend more time with your family or just in your own company generally. I think it's given people a perspective as to what their life is and what's important in life. So I think from that side of it, I think COVID has given people an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
So you may well find more sports people are retiring early, for example. But in this case as well, I think Josh Taylor's thought about it, and it's a strange one because he's quite a popular figure in the sport. He's quite he had his life in front of him really. He's very successful in the sport, but I think he's thought about it and he's just thought, well, do I want to be fighting at the end of 36, 37, 38 and the body's starting to go? Should I go when I'm at the top of my game? And that's something he's obviously thinking about.
I mean, that's why you retired quite early, and because I thought, well, I can't put up with people punching me every week, so I'll just give up.
Punching blow-up dogs every week, it's just not on.
That's where I met Matthew. No, I'm only kidding. Yeah.
Well, in some dodgy places in Edinburgh that I'm sure maybe Josh Taylor knows about, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a shame, because, I mean, he is in his prime at the moment, and, mega fights, probably are starting to come in front of his eyes. He does have a career that's very, there's a possibility that he could go all the way. He's obviously won titles in the past, so it's pretty strange that he's retiring. But, like we said about COVID, he's obviously thought about his career, he's thought about boxing, he's thought about what his life might be like when he gets to sort of our age and the end of his career, and does he want to be fighting people at the ages of 38 and his body's falling apart. So he obviously wants to go out at the top of his game, and fair play to him. I
mean, you might find as well, people's mental health might be affected because they're going to boxing in an empty arena, and obviously back in the day, the boxing arena was packed with fans, and maybe that's got something to do with it as well. Maybe not, but
Well, I mean, like I said, it's obviously giving people time to think about what they want to do. I mean, Josh Taylor, he's got. The next thing for him, he's fighting Jose Ramirez and to become undisputed world champion, and that will be in America probably February, March, April time. And I think that's a big thing for him. So if he does obviously fight in America, he'll have the big show, he'll have the crowds in, hopefully, like you said. It's another thing off his sort of list of things to do. I mean, maybe if he does go there and beat Ramirez and he has fought in the big games or big matches in America, maybe even, Nevada or Los Angeles, that's a big thing for him. But once he's done it, what else is there for him to maybe do? And maybe he's just thinking, I'll tick that off the list, get that done, get the big fight done in America, and then he can retire with money and also at the top of his game rather than seeing it out and like so many fighters do, see it out and not be at your best.
I might actually do another shameful link here, Matthew. Are you ready for this?
Oh, no.
Well, when Matthew was speaking about America, let's speak about NFL then. Did you see that I did as well?
I like talking about America.
I'm on a roll here.
Well, we're coming to the end of the NFL league season, so we're getting near the playoffs, and all the games now leading up to the end of December are all about the playoff spots that are available, and there's an extra playoff spot available this year. So, right now in the AFC, it looks like the Kansas City Chiefs and the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to qualify 1 and 2 in the playoffs, and in the NFC, it looks like the Green Bay Packers and the New Orleans Saints are going to qualify 1 and 2 from there. So those 4 are going to be in the playoffs. And it looks like 2 of those 4 teams are actually playing this weekend. The Kansas City Chiefs are playing against the New Orleans Saints, and probably what I would say is the game of the weekend. Like I said, it's number 1 in the AFC against number 2 in the NFC. It's a possible Super Bowl matchup, so we could be having a preview of the Super Bowl in February time. But it's hard to see who's going to win this game because New Orleans Saints are obviously struggling a little bit with injury. They've lost their quarterback who might not be in time. Now, they do have Taysom Hill, who's having a pretty good season, trying to, cover for that. But, they are losing. They're arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the game. And I think because of that, in this game anyway, in a possible Super Bowl preview, the Kansas City Chiefs will probably find it hard against Kansas City. Kansas City are obviously having an unbelievable year. Travis Kelce is one of the best tight ends in the game. Patrick Mahomes is obviously one of the best quarterbacks, and he's having a fantastic year. In fact, he's down for another sort of MVP season for the Chiefs. So, while I don't think it's going to be, it could well be a Super Bowl sort of preview, but I don't think it's going to be the complete story to that. And I think because of this injuries, I think the New Orleans Saints will be defeated this weekend. But it's a very big game, and it's the best game on the Sunday card. Another big game is obviously this Sunday. Is the Seattle Seahawks are playing the Washington football team. I think because Russell Wilson is on absolute fire at the moment, I think the Seahawks will have too much for them this weekend and will win the game quite handsomely. But Washington have been on a good run of form themselves as well. So it's not going to be all Seattle's way, but I think Seattle will just have too much to defeat Washington this weekend. And the Texans are playing the Colts this weekend as well. Again, I think Deshaun Watson is one of the best quarterbacks in the game. And, I love the Texans because he's in my fantasy football team. But again, I think the Colts will just have too much this year for this game. They've been playing well. They found the running game. Their defence has been playing well. And I think the Colts will just have too much for them this weekend and win the game. And that obviously will have knock-on effects for the playoffs because obviously you've still got the Colts who are still challenging in the AFC for a playoff place. So it's going to be, the next few weeks are going to be very tight, and it's all about playoff football at the moment. You'll see hot and cold performances. You'll have, last minute winners, last minute touchdowns. You'll see it all. This is when the NFL hots up, and when we come back after the new year, we'll have a better picture of who's in the playoffs and where we're going in the Super Bowl.
Gives a couple of footnotes, Matthew, before we finish off. On the 28th of December, it's the first round of the Scottish Cup, and forgot to say this earlier on, it's good that the BBC's got to show the first round of the Scottish Cup at Queen's Park is playing then, so watch out for that one on the 28th. Another one for your diary, Boxing Day at 6 o'clock. Me and Matthew, no, we're not boxing. We're doing a special show looking at women in sports. So if you remember earlier this year, we had Maureen McGonigal on for women in sport. Women in sport in Scotland, so we're going to be speaking to her about women in sport and stuff. And we'll be back on the 8th of January. And so it's been a pleasure being here for the past couple of months, speaking about corona issues and also
We've worked non-stop. We've worked non-stop, Michael.
Non-stop, 24/7. So all it leaves me to say, for us to say, is Merry Christmas and ho ho ho, Happy New Year. And hopefully we'll see you in the new year. And Merry Christmas to Matthew, my wonderful co-host in Ireland as well.
And you too, Michael, and everybody else. Have a good one.